Hello everyone, this is Mo Nagel from Technology Marketing Corporation, and welcome to today's webinar titled The New NPS Best Practices, sponsored by AskNicely. You know your Net Promoter Score, but do you know how to make that score go up? How about leveraging customer feedback to fuel growth? Today's NPS has evolved. In order to unlock a world-class score that's top 10% of your industry, as well as the business results that go with it, organizations are evolving NPS strategies. So today, we'll explore the shift of effective NPS from the boardroom to the front line, how feedback automation allows you to create a growth flywheel, which 5 critical steps you should include in your NPS process, results you can expect from adopting a modern NPS approach, and how often to send the best integration points, how often to instantly action feedback, and more. So before I introduce you to the team of presenters today, just a few programming notes real quick. There will be a Q&A session following the presentation. I encourage you to submit your questions to us using the interface on your PC at any time, either during the Q&A or as they arise during the presentation. I promise we'll get to as many of your questions as we can, and any that we can't get to during the program, I'm sure our presenters will be happy to address offline. So without further ado, allow me to introduce our presenters today. Aaron Ward, CEO, AskNicely, Scott Renna, Global Director of Client Success, Cofense, and Christina Blanchard, Lead Integration Project Manager for Schweiger Dermatology Group. Hey guys. Okay, so it looks like we're going to jump into this thing with a poll. And the opening poll question here is, do you have an NPS program in place? So Aaron, Christina, or Scott, do you guys have any expectations for answers here? What are you looking to see out of our attendees here?
Yeah,
I'm hoping we see a lot of yeses.
Yeah, I would think we probably will have a bunch of yeses given the title of the presentation today.
And if there are some no's, I hope that they leave today with a couple good ideas.
There we go. So without further ado, let's reveal these results. There we are.
Well, I think this is a great sign. So if we're looking at 78% of people saying yes, then I think most of us are here on the right webinar. That's a very good sign to start off with.
Nice. And Aaron, with that, I'm going to pass the ball to you. The hot potato is all yours.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's just go back to reintroducing the panel. I think we're going to have a number of different accents on the line. Mine is the one that's standing out. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of AskNicely, and I'm originally from New Zealand, so that's where my accent comes from. Calling to you today from Portland, Oregon. I'm very happy to tell you that we have a spectacular spring day here. We have the bluest of blue skies, not one cloud, and balloons starting to appear on the trees outside the window here. So looking stunning here from Portland. I just want to invite the audience to take advantage of the chat. My accent is something that's troubling you. That's the way to let me know if I need to go and recover any ground. But I'm excited to be sharing the panel today with Christina from Schweiger Dermatology Group and Scott from Cofense. And really excited to hear more about the programs that both of these people have been running in their businesses, which for me have been very exciting to learn about in recent times. So, Christina, I wonder if you want to just share with us a little bit about Schweiger and your role in that business.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Christina Blanchard. I'm the lead integration project manager, and Schweiger Dermatology Group is currently the 4th largest dermatology group in the country. We are on the East Coast and based out of New York City, but I'm actually based in Philadelphia. And we're the 4th largest very newly. We were the 5th largest about a week and a half ago. So we're very quickly growing. We're only about 8 years old, but we now have 50 offices across 3 states and over 130 providers. So we're very busy. We're scaling quickly, and in that scale of dermatology and in kind of a medical environment, it's really important to keep a good thumb on everything, and that's where we were able to do well with an NPS program. But overall, we are medical field, quick growing company, based on the East Coast. It's a very exciting time for us, and I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Hey, Christina, I remember when we spoke recently, you were telling me about the goal, the overarching goal that Schweiger has when it thinks about its patient.
Yeah, our company mission is to provide the ultimate patient experience. So everything that we do feeds into that kind of value and that mission. And a lot of that comes down to patient feedback. So we take patient feedback very, very seriously in our company, all the way to the CEO, to our frontline receptionists in our offices. It's definitely a hot topic in our company.
Awesome. And the business is growing really fast. I think you mentioned like over the past 3 years, it's been like doubling in size. Is that right?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I'm just thinking about how fast Schweiger Dermatology has been growing over the past 3 years. And I think I guess the challenge that you have around delivering the ultimate patient experience, is I guess amplified given the growth that the business is going through.
Yeah, absolutely. We have at least doubled in size every year since our inception. So we're constantly getting bigger, and definitely it's important to keep a thumb on that and to stay focused on that, because otherwise things could change pretty quickly if our patients aren't happy.
Awesome, wonderful. Okay, so it's great to have yourself on board representing Schweiger, particularly as a business to consumer style model. But then, Scott, with Cofense, I guess we've got a B2B technology style business. I wonder if you might share a little bit about what Cofense does and your role in that business.
Sure, I'm happy to, Aaron. So my name is Scott Renna. I'm our Director of Client Success here at Cofense. We are a computer security company, formerly known as PhishMe. We are primarily focused on stopping phishing attacks in their tracks by not only educating users, but giving them tools to alert their security teams to what they're seeing and what they're observing. Our overarching goal, similar to Christina, is we're trying to deliver a superior customer experience. There are competitors in the marketplace. Cofense was the first in the market. Having competitors, to me, validates the business model. So we want to make sure that our customers have a great experience and they stick around with us longer and become more interested in our product sets as well.
Awesome, thanks a bunch. Well, I guess just to reciprocate very quickly, so AskNicely is a customer feedback platform. Our mission is really about helping businesses deliver the right experience to every customer every day. And we believe that culture is really what ultimately drives great customer experiences. So I guess the focus of our business and our platform is really helping businesses focus and motivate the entire workforce of the business to deliver the right experience to every customer every day. So I think just hearing about the focus and at Cofense and at Schweiger, we're all speaking a similar love language. So I'm really excited to hear more about exactly how that's being achieved. So I guess if we jump to the objectives for today, now that we know that 80% of the people on the call today are currently operating an NPS program, we can skip past I think the basic fundamentals that I think everybody will be quite familiar with around NPS. How the score is calculated, what the basic logic behind it is. And I'm excited to really dig deep into the actual practical tactics and strategies that modern businesses are using today in driving NPS throughout the organization. I think you'll find that with the Cofense story and the Schweiger story, there are a lot of lessons and takeaways that people on the call can take and implement into their business today. And so let's jump into that. I guess just setting the table very quickly on some basic principles and strategies. We believe that the best brands grow on a diet of happy customers. I think if we think about brands like Uber and Airbnb, none of us went and took an Uber because we saw a TV commercial or opened a piece of direct mail or saw a billboard. These are brands that have grown on the strength of delivering a great experience to their customers that has been good enough that people have recommended that to other people. I think if we think about happy customers, well, this is just good business. If you can deliver an experience to your customers that's good enough for them to continue to be customers, spend more over time, and then recommend you to their friends, These are the modern levers for growth in business today. And there's a very simple logic behind all of this, and this is not particular rocket science, but if you can deliver an experience that is equal to or better than the expectation that the customers had, then you're going to drive happy customers. So let's jump back into poll mode. Really keen to hear from the people that are operating an NPS program today. What's the main objective that you have as a business in terms of running that program? I guess while we're taking those, Christina, thinking about Schweiger, is there a particular focus for the NPS program that you've implemented at Schweiger? Like, what would be the dominant objective for you there?
Out of these selections, it would definitely be to improve our customer service. Like I said earlier, our mission is to create the ultimate patient experience, and we rely really heavily on that customer feedback to be able to turn that customer feedback into actionable items that result in a better experience for people overall. So whether it's good feedback, bad feedback, so-and-so feedback, we take every piece of that and really try to translate it into processes and actions in our company that can ultimately improve that experience.
And Scott, how would you think the same from a Cofense perspective? What's the dominant aim within Cofense?
And similar to what Christina had said, we view any type of feedback as good feedback. The score necessarily isn't as important to us as what the customer's telling us, things they like, things they don't like, things they'd like to see. We can take that directly back to internal teams and share the voice of the customer to drive change and innovation as well. So, agree.
That's really interesting. I think this is what we've seen, certainly in our business, and as NPS as a concept has evolved, it's gone from being predominantly a board metric and a way to go and collect feedback and turns into something that's much more of an operational process. Let's have a look at the results that have come through from the poll. Oh, look at that, it's really interesting. So if we look across the audience today, overwhelmingly the focus here is around driving better experiences for customers. That's fantastic to see. So I guess as we, within AskNicely, we're dealing with thousands of customers across the globe. We have businesses in 80 different countries of all different shapes and sizes. And I think it's one of the great things about Net Promoter Score as a concept is that it's incredibly universal. It doesn't discriminate based on geography or industry or business size or stage. And if I think about the businesses that we count as customers here in AskNicely, there's all different shapes and sizes and flavors. But in the conversations that we have with each of those businesses, the core focus that we're seeing is really around how can we use NPS to drive and accelerate growth. When we think about this historically, we've drawn growth as a funnel. We think about this as a flywheel. And there are a couple of very simple common ingredients here, and we're not talking anything that's too akin to rocket science, but at its core, it's about starting with having a great product. And then off that, being able to deliver an experience that's good enough that people will tell others about that product. And if your customers or your prospects are finding out about you through word of mouth, then that's obviously reducing the spend that you're having to make on marketing, and those savings can then be implemented back into your product. So there's a flywheel here that every great customer experience is helping you drive growth and reduce your costs and further invest in product. There's a second part of the flywheel as well, which is if the experience is good enough that customers will continue to be customers, buy again and spend more, then there's a direct revenue driver off that, which then can be further invested into product. And so we call it the customer experience flywheel, and it all relies upon the ability to deliver an experience to every customer that's good enough that they tell others and continue to buy and spend more. Now, of course, there's no particular feat of genius in this theory other than the fact that it's hard to deliver and hard to deliver for every customer every day. I guess that's where we go to in terms of the new philosophy around NPS and the new best practices is about changing NPS from being a board level metric that's looked at periodically with a view to analysis and turning it into an operation process. And that's what we're going to drill into today. So I guess just backing up a little bit around the old approach to NPS. I mean, typically NPS was something that businesses would look at once a year, and it would be something that was driven by an analytics part of the business, where a long survey would be sent out to a portion of customers. Would typically get a pretty low response rate, and then be turned into some sort of PowerPoint presentation of 50 slides or more, where people would come into a boardroom and then get strokey beardy about the results they see up on a slide deck. And the conversation would be very much around analysing and interpreting those results such that some sort of improvements might be made. The new approach to NPS is about turning that whole process into a daily operation that engages people right across the workforce, not just those in the boardroom, but those at the front line, and making sure that feedback is something that's driving not just analysis, but action. I was quite keen to hear a little bit more about the experience at Schweiger and Cofense before you undertook the changes that you both made with NPS. And Scott, I was quite keen to perhaps hear a little bit more about what you were doing at Cofense before you introduced the program that you have over the past 7 or 8 months.
Sure, I'm happy to share a little bit more. So, like many fast-growing startups, we had a sort of solution in place. It had an NPS feature, but it was really focused more around just gathering a score. It wasn't really focused around feedback. We actually used to send it out about twice a year. And, it worked. We didn't always get the response rate that we were looking for, but we got some of it. What we came to realize was that there was too much of a gap in terms of how regularly we were running it. So we weren't hearing about problems or successes from customers except on a 6-month basis, outside of when we would speak with them on a regular recurring basis. So we sort of took the model, and the way I looked at it, I've been in IT for about 20 years, it sort of started to look like a front page web page to me, when that happened, as things sort of were evolving. And what we sort of realized was, instead of shotgunning out these messages, which potentially may be filtered by a lot of security devices out there, twice a year, is there a way that we can insert the ability to sort of measure that customer sentiment and feedback at different points of the customer journey? Right in the app, as you mentioned here, Aaron, the front line sort of the house. With Cofense, the Cofense business model is based on in-seat experience. That's how sort of we drive that education and awareness. And similarly, with the new NPS, which we're calling CCS, continuous customer sentiment, we want to drive it right from the operator's experience so we can gather how they're feeling, whether it be positive or negative, at various points in the life cycle without being overly annoying, but being frequent enough to give them a chance to share with us.
Awesome, awesome. And Christina, I know that you're reasonably new into the new NPS program that you've been running. I think that's been going for about 5 or 6 months now. Perhaps you can share a little bit about how Schweiger, historically treated customer feedback and was able to make use of that before you undertook this new program.
Yeah, absolutely. So NPS has always been a top metric at Schweiger. It's always been something that we have focused on, and it's always something that our CEO sets out as being one of our overall company goals for the year. So that has historically been what we do. However, up until 5 or 6 months ago, we were using a platform that didn't give us a lot of visibility into the data. So that really limited us in what we were able to do to be able to understand our score and to be able to take action on that score. So we updated our system, where our previous system, only our VP of operations had access into the data. So it was really up to her to pull the data, analyze the data, and send out an email every week. Our response rate was really low, and the understanding among the front line of what that score really meant was lacking. So when we updated our system, we joined, of course, AskNicely. We were able to then create accounts for every single general manager who is the head of one of our 50 offices. So there's the general managers and the providers, the doctors in every single office now have access to the score on a daily basis, rather than that kind of incomplete weekly report with the data that didn't give the full understanding of what was going on. Previous to that, we were kind of making decisions with a huge blind spot. We had the score, but we didn't know why. So now we've been able to make it so that people can check that every single day. We analyze that every weekly, every monthly, every quarterly meeting. It is brought up from the top line, so our executives are still involved, but we definitely have a lot more involvement and understanding from the front line at this point in time. For our frontline managers, it's a KPI of theirs every single year. It's one of the performance indicators that we base their bonuses on. So that really helps. We add a little bit of fun competition for them. If they get above a NPS of 80, they're in Club 80 and they get a little award. So we really make sure that it's really involved and that we're able to take the details of the data and create processes and actions on them. And that is really what's new to us, where we've always been tracking NPS, but just over the last 5 or 6 months, we've really been able to take that information, understand it better, and create more thorough action based on it.
That's fantastic. Okay, well, I can't wait to dig deeper into some of those ideas. Love the sound of Club 80. So well, let's get into that. So let's jump into the best practices. But before we do, we're just going to do a quick little poll. So keen to hear from the audiences, how often do you measure NPS? Let's give it a second. And I think we've got a bunch of responses coming in. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, well, this is really interesting. So here we can see that there's quite a broad distribution. A lot of people still doing annual surveys. I think the majority of people doing it quarterly. A bunch doing it monthly, and then a few people here doing it weekly and daily. Okay, this is great. Well, let's jump into best practice number one, and this is if there is one thing that I can recommend that you can do that will move the needle on the culture inside your business, is to move to a continuous feedback process. I guess just like you've heard just now from Scott and Christina, the idea of moving to a daily cadence around collecting feedback can be transformational for your business, and it offers a whole host of benefits. So, I mean, the first, and I guess the most obvious one, is that if you can move to a daily process, then you're listening to your customers every day. If you're operating an annual process, for 364 days of the year as a business, you're not hearing from your customers. So moving to a daily cadence is something that can really transform the types of conversations that you're having internally within your business. But the other feature of operating an annual or even a quarterly approach to feedback is that on the days that you're sending out those surveys, you're going to have a veritable avalanche of feedback that comes in. And as a business, it's very hard to digest large amounts of feedback and almost impossible to respond to it. So if you can move to a daily process around collecting feedback and distributing that through your organization, then you're able to effectively drip feed feedback from your customers and make the idea of following up and taking action on that feedback something that's possible. So I'm keen to jump into, what are the actual best practices that businesses are doing to affect that and make that happen in the organization. And Scott, I wonder, just in terms of Cofense, what are the things that you do to make a daily feedback culture something that's that's impactful for Cofense? You mentioned the continuous customer sentiment as sort of a brand that you've wrapped around that.
Yeah, so we sort of rebranded NPS as CCS because, again, I referenced that we sort of felt like it was sort of stuck in the front page days, and we really wanted to modernize it a little bit. I think branding usually helps as well. I want to go back to a point that, Aaron had mentioned, that when you run NPS annually, we used to run biannually. The amount of responses you would get was overwhelming. It would take weeks to go through it, build reports, get back to detractors, get back to promoters, et cetera, et cetera. So we sort of see the value. If any of you have gone through that, you know what I'm talking about. But in having the feedback process be regular, more recurring, we are working towards daily, but it gives people sort of time to digest it. And it also helps build excitement. You know, as things come in, people get conditioned to see things regularly. One of the things that's super, super important to us is the in-app capability. You know, we literally our business model is built around teaching people not to click links in emails, and most survey platforms out there provide email senders for you. So we've actually seen a tremendous increase in our response rate by switching to in-app. The other thing, we do not always utilize it. You know, not every time you log in do you have to share feedback. That's super, super annoying. We have it set on a 90-day window. We're also currently experimenting with ad hoc actions. As we release a new feature, so the first time that a user uses that feature, can we pop a survey for them to let them know right in the app, how's it going? Did you like that? Was that difficult? You know, is there something we could do better? So we're trying not to oversaturate by sort of delivering a 90-day basis. And we're trying to utilize methods that engender more responses and are more convenient for customers.
I think that point about choosing an app or a web-based survey for your platform makes a whole lot of sense. Obviously, you're a digital product and people are interacting with you through the web. But I guess with Schweiger, Christina, obviously you've got a physical customer experience where people are coming into the store, so web would make a little less sense for you. And I think, how do you collect your feedback today from customers?
So we automatically will pull from our patient database every time someone completes an appointment and send the survey out to them. But we do have it set up similar to Scott, where it will only go out every, I believe it is 90 days for us as well. In the healthcare environment, you really do not want to annoy your patient. We do have patients that come in on a weekly basis if they're monitoring a condition. We do have patients that come in every couple weeks if they're cosmetic. And we see a lot of the same patients coming back again and again. The last thing that we want to do is bombard them with a lot of emails, especially in a healthcare environment. There's always a privacy concern with patients. So we want to make sure to balance on that delicate balance between when you can be contacting people and when you should not. So we do, if someone comes in very frequently, the most that they will get the survey is 3 times a year. And they will only get it 90 to, I think, 120 days apart. So we have that set up, and normally those people who are coming very frequently, we like to give them the opportunity to give their score again, because things can change in 3 months. If we have a new receptionist at the desk, or if we have a new medical assistant, we want to get feedback on them. We want to make sure that Mr. Smith's experience is consistent over time. So really striking that balance between how often we survey them, and we do survey them through email. That just is the best piece of information that we collect. We already collect that for marketing opportunities, so patients are already aware and sign off on us being able to contact them with email. So that has worked out for us and our patient demographic.
Awesome, awesome. And Scott mentioned, the improvement in response rate that he's had by going to a web-based survey format. I'm interested, how has your response rate changed moving to an email-based format, and what did you use previously?
We previously used a NPS system that I don't think was designed to do NPS. It was just a regular surveying system. And at that time, our response rate was really low, but like I kind of touched on before, our data was really sloppy. We didn't have a lot of transparency into our data. We couldn't really tell 100% of the time what we were dealing with, but we think that our response rate was around 11%. But again, we don't really know because we were using something that was just a survey platform. It was actually a platform that we used to confirm patient appointments. And we noticed that it had a survey feature, so we just kind of tagged that on. But since switching over to something designed for NPS, our response rate, I'm happy to announce today, hit 29%. We were at 28% for a while, but we do have a response rate now of 29% of our patients that provide their email are clicking on that link and responding. So we're very happy with the growth in that, and that just gives us more feedback, more information to make our decisions on.
Awesome, awesome. That's a fantastic response rate, and obviously that's just so critical to a really effective NPS program. I guess one other aspect to making sure that you can achieve a response rate like that is delivering a very simple survey experience. That's something that customers are happy to complete because it's something that's lightweight and quick. I'm curious as to the format that you're both using. Like Christina, what is how does the experience for your customers in terms of actually providing the feedback through email?
I think it's very easy. The way that we have the survey set up is they get the email and they just have to click on a number 1 through 10. So I think that because it's so easy, of course, we have elderly patients as well as younger patients and people across the board. Dermatology sees all types of people across all different types of lifestyles and ages and everything like that. So it's very simple. It's mobile friendly. So it's just a matter of clicking that number. And then after they click the number, that records the score, but they then are asked follow-up questions. So it says, why did you score well or why did you score poorly? And they can, we set up categories that we see as a common theme. So it could be the provider didn't spend enough time with me, or the provider was great, the staff was rude to me, or the staff was great. So we set up those things so that people can answer that question as well. And then we also have a free text area where they can then write in anything specific, which sometimes turns into a rant box for people who didn't have a good experience. And it allows for us to take that information, we give it to the general manager of that location and say, reach out to the patient and make this right. Especially in a medical environment, if someone feels that they weren't taken care of correctly or they didn't get the right diagnosis or something else, it can have a big impact on that patient. So having that information allows our general managers to reach directly out to that patient. However, one of the reasons why I think our response rate grew so much is that it records that score 1 through 10, whether they answer the follow-up questions or not. So I still get that score, and the rest is just detailed information that we can use to make decisions on. So if someone hits that 9 or 10, or hopefully never but a 2, and they go to the next questions and decide that they don't want to do this anymore and X out of their screen, we still recorded that data, and we still know that that person gave us whatever score they chose to give us.
Awesome, awesome. That's really helpful. Well, let's jump on to the next piece of best practice, and that's about integrating your CRM platform. Obviously, different businesses all have their customer data and their event and transaction data stored in different systems. But if you can integrate your NPS platform or program directly into that CRM or customer system, then there are a bunch of benefits that come out of that. Now, the first is that you're able to collect feedback at the right time. So either your customer, like Schweiger, has left the location and is able to provide feedback at that moment, or I guess with Cofense, where you've got a customer that's reached a certain milestone in the customer journey, being able to trigger the survey at the right time is critical to, one, driving the response rate, because obviously at that point the customer is more prepared to share their opinion. It's more recent, it's more fresh for them. But also it means that you can instrument the customer experience, understand how customer happiness differs at different stages in the life cycle, and then also create accountability for frontline teams to be able to own that moment and then respond to that. If we look into the best practices for how you do this, and there are a number here. I'm really interested, Scott, in the way that you've done this in Cofense, because I think your business is built around Salesforce, and you're able to trigger surveys at very particular moments. Can you talk us through that?
Sure, yeah. So this is key for us. We do a lot of data analytics. We look at things such as country, industry, license size, bucket size, et cetera, et cetera. Getting all that data out is super, super helpful for us. We're also interested, we have multiple products, so we're interested in which product is this feedback coming from, which user, what is their job role or title function within Salesforce. So super, super helpful to put that all together and to paint a picture. not only can we use the feedback that the customers are providing us, but we can locate risk areas. You know, maybe we're not doing as well with a certain country or a certain industry. Maybe there's a reason for it. Being able to pull all that information together, look at it at a macro level, and cut it up further has been super, super helpful for us for looking for risk and opportunity.
Fantastic, fantastic. I guess the other piece of best practice when you're collecting this feedback, once you're able to slice and dice that by those different attributes, you can pass it back into the CRM, store it against your customer record so that your frontline people are able to see the most recent interactions, the most recent sentiment from each customer and make that next experience better.
Yeah, and Aaron, just before you go on here,
go ahead.
I just wanted to share a quick note here. For those of you that are familiar with terms like commit and upside, really common sales terms. You know, as Aaron said, passing that sentiment back so that it's transparent and visible for everyone, that can have a big influence on the likelihood of a customer that may or may not renew. So that's a super, super important point here, getting that sort of score and the feedback back to the right folks so they can adjust their forecasts accordingly and forecast accurately.
Yeah, that really leads us into the next point, which is about making NPS personal. Historically, NPS has been something that's measured at a company level. And I think, you know, a little bit like, you know, a financial profit and loss statement, it's very difficult for individuals in different roles in the organization to have a line of sight between their role and how that impacts something like profit. And NPS is very similar. I think once you've got a daily cadence running, and it's integrated into your CRM such that you can instrument it down to different levels in the organization and associate it with different teams or even roles, then you've got the ability to make NPS personal and track it at a team or individual level. Once you're able to track it down at that level, then you can set targets and then create rituals within your business to review and improve that. And then as a business, find ways to catch people doing things right. Now this starts to become part of the operational rhythm of the way that you actually drive and motivate your workforce to do the right thing for every customer every day. I think that hearing about how you've done this in Schweiger is a really great example, Christina. I'm just really interested to dig into some of the rituals that you've done to make this relevant and impactful for people throughout the organization. And perhaps you could talk us through some of the roles in the business, how they interact with customer feedback, and what you do to keep this, you know, front of mind for different people in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is that our NPS score is never a secret. Everybody knows what it is, from the top level to the part-time employee that helps us insert data. Everybody knows what it is and what their part in building that is. As far as where we put the information to, we have all of our NPS score. We have our overall company score, of course, and then we have it broken down by location, by doctor, and by region. So we are able to kind of route responses from different locations and providers to their general manager or to that provider themselves. I'm sorry, a provider is a doctor. That's in case anyone was confused. But it will go directly to the doctors and or their general managers, and they are able to respond to that feedback. So if they get a negative score, they can reach out to that patient and make whatever it is right. A lot of people, and in a lot of different industries, they might leave your store, your office, or wherever you are without saying a word, without, you know, making a peep, seeming completely fine, and then they go online and write an awful review about you, about all these problems that you didn't even know were there. So what we really see in our NPS is that by reaching out to them first, we always reach out to them the day after their appointment. If they have something bad to say or had a bad experience, we get the opportunity to address that head on before they can go and spread that negative review elsewhere. It really gives us an opportunity to say, I'm sorry that your prescription wasn't sent or whatever it is. I'm going to take care of that. So our general managers keep a close eye on this. They are emailed every single time they get a new score to make sure that they see it. And then they're expected to take action on that. And again, the general managers, it's one of their KPIs is to make sure that they're hitting our goal. So our goal for our company last year was 80, this year is 82. And every office knows that they're expected to hit that 80 mark. So if they do make it, they're Club 80, they're celebrated. And when positive reviews are shared online or through Yelp, Google, any of those other items, we have something in our office called shout-outs for our company, where our head of HR will send an email out to say, look at our Livingston office. They got 5 great reviews this week on Yelp, and they share it with everyone. So it's really celebrated when people get good customer feedback, and it really builds a reinforcing environment of being able to feel good about when the patient feels good and knowing when that patient feels good, and as well as taking corrective action when they don't. So our general managers know, they pass that information on to their providers. They use the feedback from the NPS score. We've caught a couple, staff members that aren't doing the correct thing through NPS because the patients are noticing, and we're able to correct those items. So in addition to the KPI, having the general managers keep a close eye on it, also at a corporate level with our executive team. Every single week, our CEO sits down with the rest of our executive team and discusses every single public online review that we have gotten across all 50 offices, good or bad. So it really allows us to keep our eye on the customer feedback to see which ways we're trending. And it allows us to really identify anything that we're seeing that's reoccurring, whether that is good or bad. And several times we've been able to identify issues in some of our processes that have become something that gets larger than it should be because, again, we're growing so quickly. It's kind of easy for negative things to spread. And we take action on that based on the executive level. So not only do we have our individual offices keeping an eye on their score, but we also have our executives looking at overall for the company and making sure that the people doing well are rewarded and the people who can use improvement are given the tools that they need in order to act upon that.
Well, goodness, I need to say that for those on the call, this webinar is recorded. I would encourage and urge you all to rewind to exactly about 3 minutes back, because you just got about a month's worth of customer experience consultancy in rapid fire there. There is some absolute gold in terms of best practice around NPS that Christina just shared. And one of the bits that I think we glossed over quite quickly was, did I hear you right that you have a company target of an NPS of 80?
Yes, 82 this year.
82. Well, so just to put that into context, folks. So we're very proud about our NPS score within AskNicely. We constantly hover around 67, 68. So instantly, I'm jealous of your score, as would be, I think, most brands around the world. Again, for context, the public score that Apple shares is 72. So for a business like yours to be in the healthcare space, achieving and targeting a score north of 80, I think it's just outstanding. I absolutely congratulate you for that. That's just fantastic.
Thank you. It's something we're really proud of.
And as well you should be. It's just amazing. So the next best practice is about putting real-time NPS on every screen. So it's one thing to be able to collect feedback daily. Another to have that integrated with your and driven off your CRM and then instrumented down to a role level. But if you're not able to put that onto a screen that's accessible and visible to every person in the organisation, then that feedback is going to get lost and left behind. This is all about really maximising adoption across the organisation. And the reality is that people in different roles in different organisations are going to use a different screen on a daily basis, and you want to make sure that NPS and the feedback that's relevant to that role is presented on the right screen for that individual. And again, it's going to be different for different businesses, but we really encourage the use of TV dashboards, particularly in areas of the office that have a lot of high traffic. The mobile app is awesome for people in executive roles or out on the road. And then integrating it directly into the software tools that your team is using on a daily basis. I mean, that might be Salesforce, it might be in your data warehouse for your marketing team to use, or different team collaboration tools. So I'm just interested, Scott, outside of AskNicely, where is the feedback that you're receiving being shared in terms of the software platforms that you use?
So like a lot of tech companies, we're Slack users. We actually created an Ask CS team chat channel. So what we do is we dump in responses there. Anything for detractors, we handle those in private. We just kind of don't want anyone freaking out. But anytime we have some positive feedback, if a customer leaves a good score and there's comments in there, we make sure that it's seen across the organization. This is particularly important for people like developers who maybe aren't frontline and talking to customers all the time, or people that generate content for your customers to use. They may not always hear feedback about what their work is leading to and how people feel about it. So we found it's actually helped us build relationships into groups that aren't typically customer facing, and people really are responsive to it. So that's been super, super helpful for us. Aaron, you showing the TV dashboard, that's definitely one of our goals in our headquarters. As we further integrate the process and have sentiment running throughout different points of the customer journey and life cycle, we really want to put it on that TV monitor so that anybody walking around HQ can see it. But Slack for us is working great. That's our future adoption goal.
It's really interesting to hear that. I think obviously AskNicely is an NPS business, and we have our customer feedback integrated into mobile app, into Salesforce, into our Tune Zero customer success platform, into Slack, and Intercom. We've got it piped right around the organization so that every person in the business, regardless of the role they're in, is seeing the feedback that's relevant to their function, to their customers directly in front of them. But it actually surprised us how transformational the impact of putting a big 60-inch plasma screen on the wall was. And we have it directly inside the front door when you walk into the office every day. And we see people stopping on a daily basis, looking up at the screen and starting to have conversations about the feedback that's coming in. It really draws your eye to what parts of the business are doing well and which ones need attention. So I think if I was to pick one thing out of this list that that really makes a difference to the culture and the focus of your business, it would be creating a TV dashboard where you can live stream the feedback and the score that you're getting on a daily basis. So we're at point number 5, and this is the last one, and probably the most important of all of it. If you're receiving feedback every day, if that's being informed by your CRM such that you can instrument different parts of your customer journey, different parts of your organization, and then delivered in real time to right across your business on the right screen for the right individual, now you can take action on it. And this is where rubber really hits the road. I think this is there are a couple of elements to this. One is about being able to put things right for customers that have got issues. One is about being able to address systematic issues by making improvements to the underlying service and product that you have. And the other is about being able to take the sentiment that you're receiving from customers that are thrilled with your service and then encouraging them to take acts of advocacy that then spread the word about your business and ultimately help accelerate your growth. I think, Christina, you've got some great examples within Schweiger in terms of the impact that it's had on the advocacy and word of mouth of your customers. I'm interested if you could share some of that for the team.
Sure. So we use the AskNicely platform, which allows us to do a few things that have helped to improve. So that first one right there, act on every comment. We have 2 different ways that this can go. If you're a detractor or a neutral, I forget what that term, neutral patient, we have the opportunity for our general manager of that location to reach out to them and say, we see that you didn't have the best experience. What can we do to make it better? So that is something that we do for anyone who's a detractor. And then anyone who is on the positive side of things, anyone who is a promoter, will automatically get an email saying, we're so glad that you had a great experience with us. Feel free to share your opinions on Yelp, Google, or back with our office, we'll share with our team. So we definitely make sure that no matter what that score is, we have an action lined up for it to make sure that we can get the most out of that feedback as we can. As far as creating ownership, for us, it's a relatively simple process. If you're the head of a location and the score came in because based on a provider in your location, then that you're responsible for that. So that's what we're able to do with that. And then, you know, we use a lot of automation for the Yelp and Google reviews. We also use a lot of automation to make sure that our general managers are getting the information when they need it. We have it set up so that if a review comes in, that manager is going to get an email that says you've received a 10, or you received a score of a 3, or you received a score of a 5, whatever it might be. So they're constantly getting those into their inbox so that they can respond in real time. A lot of the time, it doesn't require response in real time, but for that, every now and then, that customer who really needs something or is really involving their health, we like to make sure that they have that action as soon as possible. So we automated some of those emails, and we also allow, I think that we have 700 or 800 people in our company, and I think we have 100 to 200 AskNicely accounts. So everyone is able to go in and get that feedback in real time whenever they want. So we really make sure that this is widespread and set up so that everyone gets the information that they need at the time that they need it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thinking, like, what's the impact been on in terms of the culture of your business? I mean, the fact that you've got hundreds of people in your business all tuned into customer feedback on a daily basis. What impact have you seen on the culture inside your company?
I mean, I think that we have an amazing culture in our company. We all know that our goal is to have the ultimate patient feedback, and we all know the part that we have in it. Myself, on the corporate level, I work to make sure that processes and things for our new offices are in place, and I see the impact that I have on that patient. And I think that it all comes back down to that patient feedback. They're the people that we're servicing here. They're the people that we want to be happy. So being able to get that feedback and spread it throughout our company is really great. We're able to reward the people who make that impact, and then that just encourages people to do more and try harder and come up with new ideas and think of new ways to serve that patient in the way that we want to. And then when things aren't great and when things are negative, we have already built that culture where we can really rally behind each other and say, okay, this patient didn't have a great experience. What can we do to improve it? So overall, I think that having that feedback and seeing the impact that everyone has at different levels allows us to be able to work together a lot better towards that one common goal. And this is 100% our top goal for the company, the one thing that everyone is focused on throughout the year. It's brought up in every meeting, like I said, and a lot of emails. It's a very, very commonly shared metric. So to be able to have that common goal across the entire company also brings us all together to work towards the same thing. And I think that that's what really NPS feeds into our culture in such a bigger way than just the feedback.
Wonderful. Well, I can tell you that there are a few things that make me happier than hearing that type of story in terms of the impact that it has. I guess, Scott, interested just from a B2B perspective, in terms of how do you look at taking action on feedback and the impact on the culture within a business like Cofense?
Sure. So yeah, different business model, B2C. I mean, amazing story, amazing response rate. We also take advantage of AskNicely automation. What we found, and actually this just happened last week, by scheduling these automations, sometimes customers will leave a score and, they'll leave a tag, but they may not give you a comment in that free text box. What we found with these automations is it's actually led to eliciting more comments. We had a customer that gave us a passive score a few weeks back. Our CSM that manages our sentiment program noticed this, fired off an alert to the salesperson to let them know. In that alert, it contained feedback that was generated as a result of an autoresponder sent by me to the client, and that helped our salesperson get into that call and actually sign the client to a multi-year deal when they were sort of on the bubble, maybe thinking about leaving prior. So it's super, super helpful, obviously, to have those workflows in place. it's obviously helpful to know what the score is, but for us, the context around this score really matters a lot more. If you can come up with saves, stories like that, you can really drive sort of the perception on the value of NPS for those people that don't have a program in place and are attending today. That's a real life success story that just happened last week. So it's super, super helpful. You can see that feedback does make a difference.
Yeah, that's just awesome. I think that when a customer provides a response to a request for feedback, even if it's as simple as just providing a score like you described, Scott, but essentially that's a signal from that customer that they are open to continuing a dialogue with you as a business. That's the invitation to really pick up the conversation and then take it down that route. And to get that sort of outcome is fantastic. I would love to dig deeper into this, but I know that we're running up against time, and I want to make sure that we give some time to the comments or questions that are coming through from the audience. I can see that there is a veritable avalanche of them, so we're not going to be able to get through all of them. I think that's something that we'll do our best to follow up with people directly afterwards. But Mo, have we got some questions that we can address?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's jump right in. So I'd like to start with Christina and Scott with this first question, and it's what are some tips to boost survey responses? What response rate should we shoot for?
That's a tough one. I think that making sure that you get the survey to the customer at the right time is really important. For us, we provide a service, so surveying them the following day makes sense to us. If you are offering a product, however, you might want to wait a couple days or a week so that they're able to use that product. As far as what response rate you should shoot for, I really think that's industry specific. I always say the response rate you should shoot for is better than the one that you had before. So as long as you're making improvement, that's a great response rate for you. And then just making sure that you are hitting them at the mode of communication that they prefer and at the time that they prefer is going to be, and making it easy for them to respond is going to be the best. We also make a habit of letting our patients know when we're collecting their email. By the way, one thing that you'll be getting is a survey. We'd love to hear how your experience is. Kind of giving them a nod that, like, you're going to be receiving this, like, give us your feedback, so that when they get it, they recognize what it is, they open it up, and they're more inclined to take that survey.
And Scott, what about from your side of things?
For us, it's a little bit different. We're a security company, tech industry. A lot of folks have a lot of vendors. I get deluged by emails from everyone. So we have found that the in-app is the best way to go. The person is right in front of it. They're using our product right then and there. They give us feedback. That doubled our response rate. We also have it as part of our online community. That's super, super helpful. It's contributed a lot as well for us. We're targeting based on the preferred method that works for our customers, and that seems to be right in the platform itself.
Yeah, I can add as well that I think that all of those tips are absolutely on the money. Seeing the response rates that we do right across our customer base, I can tell you that it does vary considerably. We do see some customers that have response rates as high as 60 or 70%. And it really depends on the industry and the style of the business. But what we find is on average, and averages are dangerous, but we see about a 30% response rate.
So moving on to our next question, and Aaron, I'd like to start with you with this one. Any best practices for collecting reviews from NPS that you could offer the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first step is to ask for feedback. So I think there are a number of businesses that jump straight to asking their customers for a review directly after an experience, and that's quite a heavy lift. But the reality is that every customer has an opinion about the service experience that they've just received, and most people are happy to share that as long as you make that process easy. And just like Christina mentioned, as long as we make the survey experience something that's very straightforward and lightweight, people are happy to share their opinion. The best practice that we see is to follow that up with, and what most customers do is operate an automated workflow follow-up that appears very, very personal. It says something to the effect of, hey, I'm just reviewing the responses that we've received, noticed your comment, was thrilled to receive it. By the way, we encourage customers to place reviews on this website. we'd be thrilled if you were able to do that for us. And what we find is that because people have been happy to share their opinion of the experience, they've had to think about it. The extra step now of taking those comments and then pasting them into a review site is very straightforward, and we get a very high hit rate on that. Typically, the clients that operate that workflow tend to accelerate well past their competitors on review sites based on review count.
Scott, would you like to speak to that as well?
In terms of driving more customer reviews and more feedback, we are looking to take advantage, and I know that this is not the Ask Nicely show, but we really do love Ask Nicely. We're looking to take advantage of the testimonials feature, which enables you to have those promoters share that feedback direct on your corporate website. That's something obviously super appealing for us. For us, Yelp and Google, we're B2B, we're a software industry, not as relevant, but we are looking to take advantage of that testimonial side of the house and make it easy for customers to share. If they love Cofense, let's make it easy for them to tell the world about it.
Absolutely. Christina, is there anything you'd like to add to that response?
Yeah, I would just say that we, again, automate those reviews. So
sure.
Yes, it's not the Ask Nicely show, but we do use Ask Nicely, and it is a feature that they have that we have seen a huge benefit from. And when people give their score, if it's that positive score, we have the workflow set up to drive them to those third-party review sites, and it's been very successful for us. We've seen a double in positive reviews since we started using this. So it's about capturing the happy patient at the right time and encouraging them to do that. So that's what we've been able to do on our end.
Nice. Thanks, Christina. So we have time for one more question, and again, whatever questions we didn't get to during the live event, our presenters are going to be happy to address after the event. So be patient. So last question here, and I'd like to start with you, Christina. And I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, but how do you collect feedback without hounding or bombarding customers?
The first thing that we do is we try to let them know that it's coming. So because we're in a HIPAA environment, when we collect their email, we have to have them say, that we're going to be using it for marketing purposes, and it could include a survey. So they know that they're going to get surveyed when they give us that information. So that's the first thing is trying to give them, when we have that face-to-face interaction, a heads up. The other thing is that we only send it to them once. I know that there are features and different things on different platforms where if you don't respond within a couple days, they send it again, or we don't do that for our patients. We make sure to only ask them the one time through that email. And if they are a frequent patient, we still only survey them once every 3 months or so. And that would only be for patients that come back very frequently. So we try to make sure that we moderate that so that we're not asking them to the extent of times that they get annoyed with our emails and ask us to get rid of their information or whatever it might be. So we only send the survey once, and we only serve the survey every 3 months if they're a repeat patient.
Got it. Thanks, Christina. What about you, Scott, from your end?
So when we did used to send our surveys twice a year, we would always tell customers, as Christina was saying, that it's going to be coming, it's going to be coming. For those of you that are running a program like that with email sends, it does make sense not only to tell your customers, whether it be through an online community platform you have or directly, but also tell your internal folks, your help desk team, your executives, everyone, let them know that this is going to be going out and they can expect it. That's super important. We also use a governor on time. Again, we've shifted more towards in-app. We don't want to bombard them, but we do occasionally ad hoc surveys for sort of special projects or certain features. We always, again, tell the customer that it's going to be coming. After our service delivery team finishes an engagement, we let them know to expect the survey and what it's going to look like so they are prepared for it.
Absolutely. And Aaron, would you like to add to that?
I'll echo all the same comments, but I think the first and most important thing is to make sure that that you don't assault your customers with too many questions. Keep the experience light. And the second thing is use a contact rule that makes sure that you do not over-survey customers. I think Christina is spot on in terms of having a 90-day do not contact rule in between surveys, which means that you're going to hear from customers on average 4 times a year. That's an absolute best practice. And the third thing, which we have already spoken about, but it's taking action on that feedback. When your customers see that you're actually responding to the feedback that they've provided, you're going to see that their openness and appetite to providing feedback going forward is going to increase because they know that it's being heard and that action is being taken. And that's what drives customer advocacy.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions today. And again, just to remind you, I'm sure our presenters will be happy to address your questions once the live event is ended. I'd like to thank each of you for attending today's event, our sponsor, AskNicely, as well as Aaron, Scott, and Christina for joining us today. One last reminder, check your inbox tomorrow for additional information on the archived version of today's webinar. And again, that's all the time we have. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.